I'm standing in your house, serving justice to a man who stole your vibranium and murdered your people. Justice your king couldn't deliver.
I don't care that you brought Klaue. Only reason I don't kill you where you stand is because I know who you are. Now what do you want?
I want the throne.
Hey, you, the tuna.
Y'all sitting up here comfortable. Must feel good. It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all.
And what tools are those?
Vibranium. Your weapons.
Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world. It is not our way to be judge, jury, and executioner for people who are not our own.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 140 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm your host Becca and as always joined by my fellow cool cats Chris Byrne and Dave Bond. How are you both?
Good evening, folks.
Feeling very cool.
We've joined us for a cracker of an episode because tonight we review Pink Panther starring
Peter.
Sissons.
I can't even do the joke version because in my head I'm pretty sure I nearly said starring Peter Sissons.
Peter Sissons. Former ITV newsreader.
That just would not have fucking worked at all, would it?
That's the alternate version of
Pink Panther,
Pink
starring
Panther
a
Peter
very
Sissons.
dour newsreader as Cluzo. Right.
Yeah, but didn't the original had more focus on David Niven as the thief?
The original. I haven't seen it for a while. I have seen it several times, and it's really, really funny. There's a lot of what the hell's he called? Is it Christopher Plummer that's in that film?
Herbert Lom.
Herbert Lom isn't in the first one, I don't think. That whole dynamic with his boss comes along later. Really starts playing up from Return of the Pink Panther and stuff, where he shoots the end of his nose off and things like that. Yeah, no, we're not doing Pink Panther, and if we were, it wouldn't star Peter Sissons.
No. But no, this is a very special episode.
Is that why? Are we going to give out some social messages tonight? Don't do drugs, kids. Is this
Just
a special episode of
our
Blossom?
shouty single?
Yeah.
Just say no, kids.
Just say no.
Yeah. We're going to
this
teach
is
you
a
all
landmark.
about consent tonight and that sort of thing.
Yes. No means no.
Why is it special then?
Because we are reviewing Marvel's Black Panther. It's a landmark film. This film could only have been made.
Mark of another film. I'm joking.
They couldn't have made it previously. It could only have been made in 2018.
Why?
Just because.
You haven't thought this through at all, have you?
No, I haven't. No, I do think it's a bit of a landmark
They've been
though.
working on it for 10 years. Wesley Snipes was was rumored to get him.
Yeah, back in the 90s.
So, I mean, they were trying to make it a Black Panther film back in the day, but it just obviously, I think it's just the nature of comic book films. You had your Batman, and that was about it. I mean, Superman was kind of done. I think no one really wants to sort of. I think it was seen almost like passé, that was Tim Burton tried to do, but didn't know, didn't he? So, yeah, it wasn't the thing, wasn't it? Superhero films. It's only so it's not really came.
Yeah, Marvel have really they've really brought that out of the doldrums there, haven't they? But I kind of think of all the directors. I mean, at the moment, Ryan Coogler is definitely the one to do it. I couldn't imagine any other directors or kind of writing team to be able to kind of put this much star power onto the screen, especially with the majority African American cast as well. I think it's obviously everything's very politicized right now, but I think this is the right time to make this film. They couldn't have done it previously.
It would be really awkward if they did a Black Panther film and it was mostly white guys.
All the white guys, all the white men.
I'm from Wakanda.
Black Panther starring Tom Selleck. The suit comes directly out of the moustache. Yeah.
I'm a just. Sorry, like the whitest people you've ever seen.
I know, that's just conjured up quite a funny image in my mind. I'm picturing his suit falling out of his moustache. Yeah.
But the landscape changes as well, doesn't it? I mean, even, you know, if you go back to sort of like British comedy, for example, like the landscape has changed so much within the last sort of 10, 15 years, and certainly in terms of like, you know, filmmaking as well. But you've got kind of actors and kind of people like Michael B. Jordan and Daniel Kaluuya as well. He's sort of making headways, and especially, you know, with Kaluuya being a young British actor as well. Just the fact that he's sort of become more prominent and gained more fame and just get more traction generally within filmmaking, and now kind of going behind the camera. It's just, I kind of feel just really proud, and it's just like, yes, you know, makes you, you know, really happy.
Well, I think, you know, we'll talk a little bit. We've largely tried to stay off politics because unwisely we said things in early episodes, and you go, what are you doing? You're just dividing your audience.
No, obviously this is a high-size film, but we're going to step away from that.
I think it's fair to say there was a little bit of backlash, as there always is, just from particularly when it got an Oscar nomination, because it was like, oh, that's purely politics, and you think, well,
but it was quite political anyway, because wasn't it the Academy decided to create a popular film category?
I think that's actually
and it's just
the
like,
point.
Why?
I think that's actually the point that's been missed, because
if
Beale Street Could Talk was critically lauded, had an entirely black cast, and did not get nominated. I think,
and you've got something like Moonlight as well, for example.
I think it's reflecting the fact that certain films capture the zeitgeist, and it's not always the films that get the critical. They aren't always the ones with the sort of. They aren't what the Academy would go for. Occasionally, the two align, like a Titanic, but year after year, you're getting films capturing all of the sort of public attention. Very often critically lauded as well, and they just don't fall into that Academy category. Now, I think the problem is trying to deal with it with a popular film category, which, if you look into Academy history, is actually what Best Picture is anyway.
Yeah.
But if you look into, if you think about it that way, that's not the way to deal with it. But
no, they went about it the wrong way, I think.
But I think if there is trying to, no, it's also imagining the Academy speaks with one voice. Oh, the Academy, full of me too. They're nominated individually. It's just individual members in enough of a number put Black Panther on the list. Now I think there were 8 nominees this year. Could have been the 8th. We just don't know.
We don't know what goes on.
We don't know how high up that list it was. But when you look at the one thing I'm pleased for is when you look at the box office of Black Panther or Captain Marvel and compare it to other first entries of new characters in this continuity, or just the films around it, it tells you there was a degree of underrepresentation happening, because when this film came along, it suddenly tapped into much higher box office than we expected. This one, particularly in the United States, this outdid Infinity War in the United States. It may even have outdone Avatar in the United States. I need to look that up, but it did phenomenal money, and I think that whilst money and quality are not the same thing, I think you have to concede at that point that there was a need for it, if you like. There was a section of audience that just weren't being catered to, and if Marvel can do that, doesn't stop them catering to those of us they've always catered to. But to slip in something like this as well is not necessarily a bad thing. Looking at it on the all-time domestic list, i.e. United States only, unadjusted, it's 3rd. It's behind Avatar and The Force Awakens, but it's ahead of Infinity War, Titanic, Jurassic World, The Avengers, and so on.
Just goes to show.
Yeah, I think it's always like a multiple things, really. I mean, you have like Ryan Coogler, who's a really hot director. You've got a really hot cast.
Yes.
Particularly with Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
Obviously Rocky 2.
Yeah.
Creed.
you factor the Marvel elements. It's a Marvel film, so it's always do well anyway. It's a brand new character in a brand new world as well. I mean, what's one of the things I took from it is, is seeing Wakanda beyond all the the political stuff. What we are introduced is to a brand new world that we have not seen before,
No,
and that
it's made the leap from the page to the screen.
and yeah, and that's also something else. It's like, oh, this is something new. It's a bit different, and I think all these different elements factor in. I wouldn't know what makes a hit, quite frankly, but what I do think is it's usually like a mixture of combination of things that add up.
But when you look at something like Titanic, people go dismissively, well, it was just girls going again and again and again. And I'm thinking, well, yes, doesn't that tell you they weren't getting what they wanted from cinemas? They were getting Independence Day and stuff like that, which I'm sure has female fans. But what I'm saying is the dynamic. I think when you suddenly release a film and it massively outdoes everything you've ever expected it to do, plus you've got people saying, I don't normally go to these. I mean, another example would be Bohemian Rhapsody. The number of people I've spoken to who've been to see Bohemian Rhapsody who probably haven't been to the cinema in 4 years, or 3 years, or 18 months, or longer than that in some cases. Those who didn't go to see it at the cinema, one or two of them have gone and bought it on DVD or something. They don't even have Blu-ray players. They were just wandering around Tesco one day and just picked up a copy of Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's because there's obviously a market that isn't. They're not seeing things in general release that speak to them. Black Panther's got a bit less of that, because I would think the majority that went are a typical Marvel audience. But for it to leap up to third all time at the US box office, over and above the releases from the last few years of properties we know, like Captain America films and other team-up films and so on.
This is relatively new, even though it's within the Marvel
That
universe.
tells me there are people who went to see it, possibly largely people of colour who just like. I mean, I work with someone who's originally from Zimbabwe, and her son is about 11, I think. Never met him. She just told me about him, and she was asking me about Black Panther because she said her son could not wait to see it. And this will sound on the nose, but it's literally true. He said to his mum, he said, "I'm going to see someone who's like me."
Exactly, they're seeing themselves, represented on the screen. I think that's why, obviously, with Captain Marvel as well, it's just like finally, obviously Wonder Woman as well. We've got a woman leading the charge. We've got a female. Obviously, we have quite enough white male role models. That's fine. But it's like it's very, very few and far between that you have a woman or somebody of colour or from a minority character leading the charge and being an outstanding role.
To be fair, though, if you're in the African American community, write to us and tell us whether you'd have been happily given up that representation to see Black Panther's suit come out of Tom Selleck's moustache.
I mean, there's a fine sort of difference as well in it, because it's very much to Africa really more than American. There's a quite difference. Like the kid from Zimbabwe is like, he's obviously, there isn't a big movie.
Well, I think technically he's from Cornwall, Chris. But obviously his family history is Zimbabwe.
Sorry, I misheard you then. Sorry.
No, her mum is. But I just think none of those things need to be anyone over the head. I think it's just proof that even if you forget what's decent and what's right, and just look at the commercials of it, the more people you can represent, the more you're going to drag people in who don't normally go. So it was good from that perspective. With Captain Marvel, which we've already recorded and it'll be out in a couple of weeks, I think more of Wonder Woman in that I saw so many pictures of 5 and 6 year old girls at cinemas in the picture, in like the outfit, and I just thought that's amazing. That's just lovely.
It makes your heart so full. You just think, oh, at last, I wish that was happened to me sort of growing up. Obviously things like She-Ra, very legendary. But again, it was a lot of surrounded by a lot of male characters. But it's just
we've returned to Becca's general problem of overusing the word legendary again, though, because if you've ever watched an episode of She-Ra, it's bollocks. Anyway,
so Becca, did you not have anyone growing up?
Well, obviously my mum and
no, but
on members of my family.
But she didn't beat many supervillains, did she?
No. No, but I'm saying it's you still have Ripley in Aliens,
obviously
and
Ripley, obviously Scully,
Leia in Star Wars, and
exactly. But in terms of anyone like from like sort of minority as well, I mean, that's why this is going to sound really stupid. Something like Doctor Who, for example, haven't one of her companions like be dyspraxic, for example. They didn't explore it at all. Just gets mentioned, and there's a few little things, but it's like I feel seen a little bit, and it's just having that representation there. But I think that the reason why Black Panther sits at number 3 is because it's a bloody good action film. You know, regardless of everything else.
Rankings there.
No, not her rankings. She was talking about box office position.
Yeah, the US. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
That's strike 2 for me not listening to what people say.
Yeah, but Chris, she's a woman. Why would you be listening?
Wow, true.
I know about embroidering kittens when that suffice.
That's lovely, dear. Anyway, Chris, what do you want to talk about?
That man talk. Slap me on the bum.
Is that a request?
Only wearing my towel onesie. Only.
Very toweling onesie.
I admire the way you dry yourself whilst looking fashionable.
Only Sean Connery could wear that suit. Also, how he could only pull off double denim and never seen ever again.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking. I kind of think there were periods of his life where Michael Douglas could have had a go. Because he used to pull off wearing some weird shit.
We'll see him look stylish in when we do Ant-Man.
You know who could pull off double denim? Kurt Russell.
Yeah. I'm sure he could have done, definitely. I'm sure, I know Roger Moore did in the mid-80s.
Just to talk about, Roger Moore didn't pull off anything fashion-wise. It was always like, what the fuck's he wearing?
He did a safari suit.
He didn't pull that off. It was like, what is he wearing?
You know what it is with Roger Moore, though? It's just how, like, he just had a confident, relaxed stride about him, so no matter what the fuck he was wearing, he just kind of looked like, I don't care.
He owned it. He owned it.
Yeah.
In terms of, you mentioned the cast of this film, you're absolutely right. I tell you what, Michael B. Jordan...
I've got a whole list.
Oh, let's hear who's in the cast, then. And then we can talk about it. So
I've got all the important people.
Tell us about Black Panther, Becca.
But anyway, yes, this week we are reviewing Black Panther starring Danai Gurira, who got erroneously left off the last Marvel poster, and Charlie.
Who?
Danai Gurira.
Charlie was left off the poster as well. No. Fuck you, Marvel!
Yeah, literally, he posted a picture of the poster of the new Endgame poster, and he wrote like, and Danai Gurira, and sent it to Marvel, and they were like, no, better correct that, rah, rah. So yeah, Charlie was a Twitter moment.
You got the flashback then of people saying, well, so-and-so wasn't named on the last one. It's like, no, there are 12 people pictured on that poster and 11 names above it. That's actually...
They're on there.
It was a mistake. It was just... I don't think it was... Particularly as of the names on there, she was probably the less known to audiences and the easiest to forget.
Ran out of space, but this is like, it's the point. It's like
it was an easy fix and they fixed it, thankfully.
It's fine. There wasn't any maliciousness behind it, I don't think.
But it needed pointing out and it needed fixing.
And Charlie was the man to do it.
Yes.
Anyway, yes, starring Danai Gurira, Angela Bassett, Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Florence Kasumba, Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Daniel Kaluuya, Forrest Whitaker, Winston Duke, Martin Freeman, and Andy Serkis. And also, eagle-eyed viewers will spot Isaac Dibankale as the River Tribal Elba. I can't even speak. The River Tribal leader.
From the family Idris.
Yes. I was thinking Elba is the name of a river, but that's not in Africa. No, yeah, he's the elder of the River Tribe. He's got like the lit disc. And he played Stephen Obano in Casino Royale. I was like, I recognise that gentleman.
Oh, yeah, the guy with the big plate in his mouth.
Yeah, he's got the big disc and massive earrings.
He was one of the Ugandans.
I know that face.
He was one of the Ugandans. Actually, I think... I'm not an expert on the continent of Africa, but I think when we get the little prologue at the start of the film that we'll go into later, when you pan back on Wakanda, it's roughly where Uganda is.
It's going to be around that area.
Yeah, roughly.
Then yes, with music by Ludwig Göransson, with music from Kendrick Lamar and Baba Ma, script by Ryan Coogler and J. Robert Cole, and directed by Ryan Coogler, and released 2018. Anyway, and that's my credits of the film.
Yeah, you were just talking about, because I was reading, so I get confused what I'm reading, what it's in relation to, because I don't know if this was to do with the Disney Fox, the Disney buyout of Fox, but they were talking about things that were in development, and one of the things that's in development, and I knew this last year because I did a podcast on these films. But Michael B. Jordan is developing another remake, although it is 20 years on from the last one, so I don't really have a problem. But a new version of the Thomas Crown Affair. I think, well, that's the sign of how big he is now. We're now at the stage where it's like, what do you want to do? Well, I've always wanted to, and apparently it's something he was keen to do. He's had an
he's now in a position to be able to do it. So.
A passion project.
Yeah.
It is. It isn't just the studio want to do a Thomas Crown Affair, and like with Paramount and say Jack Ryan, they go to Chris Pine because he's under contract. This is something Michael B. Jordan has wanted to do for quite a long time, apparently. So he's obviously got some sort of take in his mind, and he's now at the stage where he can suggest writers and things like that. So he's a big name, obviously. Probably the biggest name in the film currently. Chadwick Boseman first came to my attention I haven't seen 42 yet, the Jackie Robinson film, but I have seen Get On Up, and I saw that theatrically. That was the James Brown biopic, and it's fucking spellbinding. It's
meant to be amazing.
It's fantastic, and he's fantastic in it. It was one of my favourite films of that year. I can't remember which year that is, though. I think it's 2014 that came out. But I may be wrong. He's wonderful in it, so I'm always interested in anything he does now. And I'm led to believe the Jackie Robinson film's really good as well. Baseball film. Baseball not being a big thing in this country, but I'd happily watch a film about it. And then there's others in the film that are probably less well known. I have to say, seeing Angela Bassett dressed like that, I couldn't help but get her confused with Madge Sinclair from Coming to America. She looked like
you see where the influence was.
Mrs. King Jaffe Joffer. Angela Bassett, I couldn't place her. I'm sat there going, that's the one from Coming to America. I'm thinking, didn't she die years ago? I had to look it up when I came out. Angela Bassett, obviously been in tons of stuff, probably still best known for playing Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It.
Yeah, she'll forever be Tina.
Easily confused with Viola Davis purely because they've both played Amanda Waller in recent years. She played the original Amanda Waller in the Green Lantern film in 2011. Had she never done that, I suspect she might have been in contention to play it in the current DC universe.
Yeah, in my opinion, she should have been like the original Storm, but in the original X-Men. But
yeah, that would have been
I
cool.
don't know X-Men well enough to comment on that. And the thing is, I don't think inherently Halle Berry's a particularly awful actress, but she wasn't good in those X-Men films. But that was the accent choice and things like that. The
effects look cool. That's the main thing.
No, it isn't. That's not the main. That's not the main thing in any film.
Oscar and the Razzie in the same year.
No, you keep saying that. You're wrong.
That's
that's somebody else. I know.
Sandra Bullock.
I know.
They did both win. No, Halle Berry picked up the Oscar in 2002 for 2001 for the previous year, not for the film 2001. She weren't in that. Monsters Ball came out in 2001. The following year, she picked up an Oscar for it, and then she picked up the Razzie for Catwoman, which means she would have picked that up in 04. The following year, I think it was, Sandra Bullock picked up both in the same year.
And they both actually turned up, didn't they, to do the acceptance speech to the Razzie?
Halle Berry, both of them are good. I remembered Sandra Bullock's not being that funny. Then I watched it again a few months ago when we mentioned it in some other show, maybe a couple of years ago now, and it was really, really funny. But Halle Berry's is even funnier.
Mm.
Yeah, I know. I think Sandra Bullock sort of brought everyone a copy of the DVD of said film.
Yeah, on a big fucking trolley. Yeah.
Yeah. And Halle Berry just went on as a speech to just sort of just talk about the experience of how basically how shit it was.
Yeah, but she played it all emotional because she did cry when she picked up the Oscar. So when she did the Razzie, she thank you for putting me in this piece of shit. So yeah, Catwoman she's really bad in it. It's a bad film, but she's really bad in it.
Catwoman! Oh my god,
she's pulling a Derek Zoolander face every time she's in the outfit.
Terrible film. Oh my god, that's worth us doing a commentary. I would imagine.
I don't know what series we'd put it in with, but I'd happily do something.
We just do a one-off.
Maybe I don't. But again, when and why? But we might figure something out. Maybe we'll do some I don't know. Even bad superhero films, we've already done a couple, so I don't know. Maybe we'll do it as a bonus on another series. Maybe when we do the DC universe, we'll take a week to sort of do a Catwoman.
Maybe.
But yeah, Angela Bassett is someone I kept just the way she was dressed. I just kept getting her confused with Mad Sinclair, who's long dead, long dead. Who else? Andy Serkis. Now a
pops up
reasonably
as the
big
villain.
name. Bit wasted. Martin Freeman doing his wonderful American accent.
I think it's quite interesting how, you've got obviously these two, really well-known English actors obviously both doing accents, but I think Andy Serkis, even if he did mocap in this role, I would watch him. I'm quite a bit of a fan. I'm happy to watch whatever he does. I'll listen to him read the phone book in any number of accents. But he clearly is having a great time in the role.
Yeah, a little bit wasted, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, you don't see enough of him.
But yeah, I think what I'm saying is there's a pretty decent cast here. I mean, even things like Sterling K. Hayden and stuff like that in relatively small roles.
Really good, really good cast.
Known him from lots of other things. Daniel Kaluuya, who's become big and new since because of like Get Out. Actually, I think Get Out was before this, but it got popularised just afterwards with the Oscar.
Yeah, I think because he was in Black Mirror as well, and he's popped up a few things, especially on UK TV, that have now become available via streaming, and people have discovered him through that, and then coming to him.
He's really good in Widows as well.
Yes, Widows, that's a brilliant film.
I saw Widows literally about 3 weeks ago, and I liked it a lot.
He's like Seal Steve. He plays such an intimidating villain in that film.
Yeah, and he's quite a little bloke, really, or can't, so to be able to do that is quite impressive.
Yeah, he still has quite intense physicality though, doesn't he? Despite,
Yeah, I've not seen him in a vast amount of other stuff, but he's one of these faces I knew. He popped up in different things.
Yeah.
He'll
always be Tea Leaf in Psychoville to me, though.
Yeah, that was a good series.
I didn't particularly get on with Psychoville that well.
It was a bit weird, but very good.
I just didn't find it that funny.
But it's always nice to sort of see these like low key British TV shows, and then they make it like big in Hollywood. Think fucking hell, it's like Simon Pegg.
Exactly.
Like think back to like fucking Big Train. You just think to yourself back then, like
exactly, or like Space. It's like almost
you
like
would
now
not
a famous,
you would not believe that like that guy would be like really in like a big franchise and that now. You really wouldn't think. You
might believe Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but you wouldn't believe Mission Impossible and Star Trek, would you?
Yeah.
No, exactly.
And of course, it's worth mentioning in quite a small role, really, Forrest Whitaker.
Yes.
Oh, and Winston Duke as well. He's an actor who's getting.
Yeah, he's fun. It's good to see him around.
He's in Us, yeah. Winston Duke.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Us. I think it's quite well known to listeners now that I think to say I dislike horror would be too simplistic, but it's not massively my fucking thing, so I've got no intention of going to see Us, but it's one of those things that when it pops up on like Sky Movies, I might take a look at it.
Have you seen Get Out?
No, because it's one of those things I keep meaning to, and then I pick something else.
Yeah.
That's my problem with horror. It's not inherently I can't like it. I wrote an article for a fucking website the other day on Let the Right One In. I think that film's magnificent, but it's one of those things that I go to watch it and then I pick something else. And I do have to pay to go to the cinema. I don't have an unlimited supply of I have to buy the vouchers, albeit they're cheaper because of a site I can access to get them a bit cheaper. And I live a certain distance from the cinema now, and it's one of those things that I have to pick and choose, and I don't tend to choose this. Someone wrote to me yesterday and said, "Have you seen Pet Sematary?" And it's like, I'm not really going to bother. It's just not.
It's not on your radar. It's not on your radar.
It's not my thing. So it does mean I've not seen a lot of this guy at all. In fact, I'm looking through a quite limited filmography, and I've not seen any of it apart from Infinity War, obviously. He's been in Law and Order. I've not seen that, or not that particular version anyway. Person of Interest I never watched.
That's a good series.
I've heard it's good, but I've not seen it.
On TV.
So he doesn't actually mean much to me, really. There's certainly some names in this cast anyway. And of course, I forget to mention Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita Nyong'o is probably the most decorated of all of them, thanks to 12 Years a Slave.
That's such a good film.
12 Years a Slave. Well, it was one of those films that I watched that felt like I was watching something that was good for me, rather than was in any fucking way enjoyable, or even that interesting. I don't know what the fucking point of it was at all, to be honest. But she was superb in it. She was probably the best thing in it.
Just gave a performance of a lifetime. I think a real powerhouse
And
performance.
I do believe she picked up Best Supporting Actress for that.
Much deserved, richly deserved for sure.
So yeah, and in some respects, she's not just by weight of what people that have been. She's not the typical Hollywood beauty. It would have been very easy to cast a very different vibe as a love interest to her. So I like that.
I think she's quite beautiful though. She's kind of.
Yeah, but she's not. No, but she's not typical.
But she's not like your typical.
She's not typical.
No, I think that's.
You mean is it like a Halle Berry or Beyonce type?
Yeah, or even at a push of Zoe Kravitz or something. She's not typical.
Okay. But then you kind of, I find that quite a slippery slope, really. Because it's kind of like.
I think it's more of a Hollywood thing, really, to myself.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
That's what I mean. You kind of go into the realms of like what Hollywood thinks is pretty, and I find that just a bit of a slippery slope. But yeah, no, I see what you mean definitely in terms.
All I'm saying is
looking at it like that,
you would expect a studio to interfere on casting decisions like this.
Yeah, and say, hold on.
And it appears they haven't. Although they didn't.
Like this, for example, it's refreshing that we don't see like Beyonce or. People like that.
That would have been really distracting, to be fair, if Beyonce had turned up in this.
And this is it, it'd be like, oh, it's Beyonce. So.
They didn't even interfere to say, what's that British guy's fucking accent like?
Those two white guys, tell them to talk properly.
Becca, I saw your rankings at the end of last year. I think you ranked your films of the year for something. It might have been Set the Tape.
I had to do it on the fly because I hadn't watched very much.
And based on what I saw, I'd like to hear from you first on this film, please.
I can't remember. Did I rank it quite highly?
You ranked it higher than Infinity War at the time.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about it. I should say when we come to rank these Marvel movies.
Doesn't mean you have to rank them the same way when we do the rankings episode, but on the fly, your first reaction was to put it higher.
I think with Infinity War, I did struggle because I'll tell you about it next week.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that, but I'm saying you clearly had a great reaction.
In a nutshell, too busy, too much going on, but still very good. But no, with this one, as you said, Chris, it's a new character, it's a new world. We've not seen it before, well, unless you've read the comics, which I haven't. But I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the history and how the character's been perceived and created and where it's come from. But yes, it's a new character, it's a new world we've not seen before. And even with the political aspects of it as well, and obviously watching it as a white woman, you have to cast all that aside. And I just kind of went in and thought, right, I'm just going to enjoy this. This, to me, looks like an absolute belter of an action movie, and it is. I think it's probably one of the better action movies of the series. I had a really great time. I had a good time watching it here on home release. I kind of felt it's one of the slightly longer films. It's not like massively long, like we'll see with Endgame later on in the year. But I think it's one of the slightly longer films. Like I dragged a little bit in the middle, but some of the set pieces are brilliant. Performances are top notch. As I say, we talked about Andy Serkis previously. Don't see enough of him, but he's having a great time in the role. He hams it right up, and I happily watch him in anything. Cast are all on top form. Really great, nice big name cast. Some of them are kind of like what's hot right now. But they're not flavour of the month. They're actors who go from strength to strength and will go on to create amazing films at top tier movies. Great cast, great performance. Visual effects are top notch. One of the best looking films ever. I'm sure in 4K it looks immense. Well, having said that, I watched it again on Blu-ray to prep for this. And I think there was probably one scene. Erik Killmonger and Black Panther when they're fighting like along by the train tracks, and it does veer slightly into like video game territory, but it's literally just one particular special effect in one scene, and that's all. Otherwise, it looks fabulous. And to me, the money's on the screen for sure. Script is great. I had a really really good time. I really enjoyed the film. Love that we travel around the world. For me, it's got a bit of a Bond thread going through it as well, which I think is really cool. I massively enjoyed that. and it's it's really interesting to see this new world portrayed in a new way that perhaps we haven't seen before. But when it does come to the time to rank the Marvel movies, I will probably rank this one maybe top 5, if not top 10. I'll rank it certainly very highly.
You know what? I rewatched it again today, and I like this film even more than I did previously. I think generally my feelings are basically the same, but I think it's a really good film. I think the only real gripe is that it kind of loses its way towards the end. It just feels like a little bit rushed, and you have to get to the big fight, and I say with two CGI characters fighting each other. I always feel it's like a bit of a lost opportunity to bring the old suit back, because you got two people fighting the same suit, and then after establishing that he's gone for the old to the new, and I thought, well, you had the opportunity to I haven't got my suit. Well, here's the old one. You have to use this in the meantime, and with the
they do miss out there a little bit, don't they? I think, and so it is difficult to tell between them.
Yeah,
it does look quite similar.
I mean, I suppose it would be like art to repeating itself, like it did with Winter Soldier.
And
Soldier.
And
yeah.
Spidey had to go back to his old suit as well.
Yeah.
Although that was starker because he went back to a homemade one, I know. But
yeah. But yeah, literally just
wearing the pajama
now.
onesie.
Literally just remembered that's Marvel's done that already now. So, but yeah. Anyway.
Write down. I'm sorry. I'm a twat 10 times.
Oh. He's lovely.
I throw in the odd bottom comment for a couple of our listeners who are fans now and again.
Our famous, dirty jokes.
Other than that, it's got really good performances, really good character development, two really good villains as well. I think that's what really makes it. Other than the world building, it is we've got two villains, even though one of them is kind of wasted now. I mean, I would have liked to see Klaue.
He's a great character, but we didn't see enough of him, and he's killed off far too early.
In Avengers, he's very much like, oh, so what? And here you think, oh wow, he looks like a fun character to have around the Marvel universe. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, they do away with him. It's like, oh, but for the moment he's on screen though, he's just packing so much energy, and he's just crazy. He's just utterly nuts, and he just does not care what goes on. Death, destruction. If he can make some money out of it, fair enough.
Yeah, it's exactly the sort of villain you kind of want. You probably wouldn't want as the main villain, but to have a villain who pops up every now and then. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to have. He's a typical comic book villain, isn't he? He's kind of very colourful, but completely mental. And I don't agree. But I say somebody like Killmonger as well. He's come from. You can see. It's difficult because you can kind of always sympathise or empathise with him. You can kind of see where he's come from and see why he's juxtaposed in that way. But at the same time, he's more credible, more believable. Yeah, he's not just your angry, family problems. He's very aggressive, very focused.
Yeah, there's a clear line running through. You can see where he's coming from. He's sort of one of the more credible.
But you can also it's because he's very angry and aggressive. It's that's what's fueling him, and that's probably why he is the villain in the day, because he has that line of thing. He's that aggressive, that kind of that kind of thinking, So yeah,
there's a little bit. This will sound odd, but there's a little bit of Adonis Creed in him.
That would be my next point. I wonder if
Adonis Creed had a massive fucking chip on his shoulder and was quite petulant at times.
Yeah, they're quite similar, aren't they? They're
not played entirely differently from each other.
No.
When you think the director has cast...
Ryan Coogler as well?
Yeah, and he's written it as well. So Ryan Coogler has written this for Michael B. Jordan's voice.
Exactly. I mean, they often do kind of work together, don't they? So.
Yeah, definitely. So I never thought about it, but yeah, that's probably a good point. I mean, yeah, he isn't quite wants to fucking colonize the rest of the world and shit, but but it's sort of to take over the world like Viva Race, or anything like that. But yeah, no, but generally speaking, it is he is a good villain, and we've got two good villains really. So I think that's what kind of makes it for me. He also had a really good lead in Chadwick Boseman. He's quite sort of stoic, and quite engaging. Generally throughout the cast, they're all kind of engaging, really. Even in the name, so I can't even remember now. But yeah, David.
I always liked this film. Was always positive about it, but there were a few problems I had with it when I first saw it. The visuals are fine. The visuals are very nice in places, but there are scenes, and I think this befits the first in a series, if you like. The first time you move a character front and centre, you're not quite sure how popular it's going to be. So, at an extreme example, Thor looked so cheap, and I keep on about it, I know, but that is the poster boy example of we don't know how this film's going to do. Even Iron Man, it didn't look cheap, but there's less action in it than you remember, because it was right at the outset. There are scenes in this film, Marvel have this, kind of vanilla sky effect I've referred to before, and we see it when T'Challa is challenged, when he's challenged by either Killmonger or, I think, earlier with, what's he called, M'Baku. That looks like a set. Now, it must be digitally enhanced because they won't have built up that far with people stood there. But there are scenes in this film that still manage to look a little bit cheap. So that bothered me a little bit. The other major thing that bothered me, or there's two other major things that bothered me. One I no longer have a problem with, and that's the fact that Chadwick Boseman, I'd only seen him as James Brown. Now, James Brown was an asshole, but any time you read up on that man, he was not a nice man. His behaviour towards women, lots of things about him were certainly not laudable, but he had phenomenal stage charisma, and he carried himself with an incredible swagger. And so I'd seen Chadwick Boseman burn up the screen in the only other thing I can think of that I've seen him in. There may be other things. And when I first saw this film, I thought he's the least interesting thing in his own film, because he was stoic with a lot of quite playful and interesting characters around him, like his sister, and Okoye is a really great character and stuff like that. That's gone away now. I think with reviewing, I don't see that film. That in the film, I see a man struggling with his conscience, with his ideas of what a king should be, with his father's legacy. I see it a different way. It's one of the worst examples for third act fucking drift, though, for me. Looking at it today, it's a reasonably long film, and it's somewhere around that hour and a half mark, maybe about an hour and 40 in, it just goes action, 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 and it's too long. We spend about 30 minutes on that battlefield, and that's far, far too long. And I think the whole... Because you're trying to set up the world, which they do extremely well, I have to say. I mean, because people say, well, it reflects African culture, but of course that country does not exist. So it has to be it's
very much of a world of the future, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yes, but even the cultural tribes and stuff, it has to be...
It's all a mix of
that could have got
various different elements.
That could have got a backlash, couldn't it, though? I mean, if you put out a film saying this is the culture of wherever, and then you actually end
people
up with a hodgepodge.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You peel back any country, you've got different cultures, you've got different dialects, you've got different languages,
yeah.
You've got different...
And of course they had to be a bit more generic on that, but they did a great job. I know he talked about basing a lot of it on Lesotho, which is like a little... it's bigger than, but think like San Marino or Monaco or the Vatican or something.
Yeah, all the countries that make up Africa.
It's a country encased in another country. It's within South Africa.
Within a country.
Yeah. But anyway, the third act I had a real problem with. It does go on far too long. It's like it's in Guardians of the Galaxy territory, but because they've spent so long building the world up, the transition to power of Erik, and then the whole what happens to T'Challa, and then bringing him back and straight into battles really quick. I didn't put a time check on it, but from the moment he's beaten to the moment he's back on the battlefield probably isn't that long. And so I felt the second half of the film's rushed, but at the same time they're rushing to a sequence they then spend far too long on. So, sorry, go on, Chris. What do you want to ask?
No, I was just about a comment really. Like the whole bit of him like getting defeated, it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Superman loses his powers, so he has to kind of like re-establish who he is. It's that typical superhero thing, isn't it? Of
Yes.
or like I have to find like it's kind of like in Spider-Man. It's like if you're nothing about a suit, then you shouldn't be out.
And
you
it's
shouldn't have
working
it, so.
out what I didn't see the first time as strongly. I saw it. If you asked me about the themes of the film, I think I'd have named it. But it's much stronger on rewatch. The motivation, again, written by the same man who wrote Creed. And when you think of, it's much more in Creed 2, which he had nothing to do with. But this whole idea of working out why you want something, not just because it's in your bloodline or you're meant to. It's not only, but it's also why you want it, but also what you want to do with it. What do you want to actually do with this? Do you just want the title of king? Or do you want
to use your powers to be able to do X, Y, Z?
Do you just want to continue what your dad did, or do you want to do something new? What is the
fundamentally finding who he is and actually choosing to be Black Panther is a metaphor for that anyway.
It's all about identity, isn't it? Really.
So there's a lot of that in the film.
I will add this that I think there is a bit of a problem, like because when he gets like defeated and he gets flung off the waterfall, we next see him like sort of in like almost like a coma type thing where they give him like the Black Panther thing and he wakes up, he's like, he's Black Panther again. You know, there's no actual recovery or I need to do something to get my powers back.
It's a bit shorthand, isn't it? He's given the juice of the herb, but apart from that, it's a bit shorthand, isn't it? Movie shorthand of how you recover from an injury.
But I think because we need to sort of get into talking about the film from scene to scene and so on, I think if I had to summarise this, again, I've not ranked it, although I've got a fair idea because I've always got an outline. I think it's top tier Marvel just. And what I mean by that is there's a handful of films that are a little bit better than it overall in terms of probably fewer flaws or a little bit more interesting in certain ways. Yeah, top 10. I think when I first saw it last year, I think gut feeling is it would have been about halfway. But off the last few weeks, it's going to rank ahead of Ragnarok. It's going to rank ahead of Spider-Man. Spoiler alert, it's going to rank ahead of Captain Marvel. And
definitely going to rank higher than Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's probably bottom for me.
Captain Marvel's in the middle somewhere for me, but we'll see that.
I don't know where I'm going to place
it. For those of you listening to this, obviously you've not heard Captain Marvel yet. You've just heard Chris say that.
I haven't monstered it. I didn't monster it.
No, he didn't monster it at all. And in fact, you might want to think about that, Chris, only because there are films earlier in the series you were way tougher on.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I didn't say way bottom. It will be in like the bottom pile.
Oh, I see what you mean. Probably about halfway for me. But anyway, the point is, there's a couple of team-up films that are better than it. It's not as good as The Winter Soldier. I'm sorry, it isn't. The Winter Soldier is almost perfect in structure and execution.
And for me as well, the original Avengers movie, I think that still ranks really high.
I think this will probably rank just behind that as well. But at its very best, it's better than my top three. It's better than most of what this universe comes up with. It's stronger than what we've covered in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It has themes, it has a vision, which I don't think Thor Ragnarok had. It has a scale and sort of majesty to it that perhaps Spider-Man Homecoming wouldn't have. So yeah, it ranks really high for me, but there are a handful that are better. It's going to be darting around at the original Iron Man or something like that somewhere. But yeah, that's it for me. I really enjoyed this, and it's getting. I think the mark of a very good film for me is it's getting better over time. I gave it a reasonably lukewarm thumbs up on our summer review last year. Now I'm saying it's in the top third or just below.
Yeah.
Of Marvel. I think just below, actually, because the top third would be top 6 or 7, and it might just miss that, but it's very close. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it'll definitely be in top 10 for me. I can't say for sure whether it'll be top 5, but I'm saying
neither of us. I remember the summer review though, and neither of us would have. None of what we said would have had us rank it that high. So it's getting better over time.
Yeah. Definitely, I mean, like especially like the first 2/3. It's just really kind of, it's really high quality.
I don't like the last third of this film, I have to say, but there's plenty in this continuity that I feel the same way about. But of course, I can't put it top when I don't like a third of the film, which is, the same as Guardians, and so on. The highest ranking film that I feel that way about is probably Iron Man, because the last third of that's not great either. But the first 2/3 is such a blast of fresh air that I can't but rank that really high. With that, shall we discuss this film sequentially?
Let's do it.
Yeah, go on then.
A little prologue. I like this. I always think of Man of Steel and Wonder Woman when I see this prologue. I suppose Wonder Woman in the way the story's told, and Man of Steel in that style of things being formed out of what looks like coal or carbon or something like that. This is basically telling us that a vibranium meteorite hit Earth. It hit what became Wakanda, got into the soil, got into the plants, got into all their sort of everything they would make textiles out of, and all that sort of thing. And so, plants grew like the heart-shaped herb that would give somebody superhuman abilities along the lines of a sort of Captain America, a bit like a super soldier serum.
And gives everyone like a little luminous thing just under their lip for whatever. I don't know how that.
I don't know where that came from. I didn't know if they were branded at birth. That was not explained, Chris.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, we don't find out. Like maybe it just happens like if they're born.
I mean,
and that's just perhaps where it comes from. Like a birthmark, for example.
I would assume that it would probably be like a initiation tattoo type thing. But if Killmonger has one when he wasn't born there, I would have thought that would be so. I don't know. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, how did you plot hole?
Well, it's not explained. I don't know. I mean, it could have been something they did in America. I don't know, but.
Ryan, if you're listening, please tell us. You never know.
I take it back. This film's awful. No, I'm joking. No. What kind of struck me is that this is kind of like super origin of an actual area, of an actual of a little sort of I was going to say city, but like a pocket of the earth. It's like land essentially gets superpowers, and the people sort of advance from that.
Yeah,
it kind of works in that sort of same way.
Yeah, and of course, we're told there are 5 tribes that sort of come together to form the nation. A fifth tribe refuses to. That's the tribe that has M'Baku in it that we'll come to later. Something that we're told there's a vision that leads one of the tribes to become the first king and first Black Panther with that herb. And then basically they say as the world sort of lurched into chaos, they decided to sort of, again, there's a lot of sort of, if you were to look at the agenda of the film, it's very pro-globalism. So of the film, the Wakanda becomes very isolationist and actually has the technology to shield itself. So what looks like a third world country from outside, when you fly through, it's new modern cities and technology based on vibranium. So they're miles ahead of the rest of us and miles richer than the rest of us. It's still recognizable as our time, but everything's a bit more advanced.
So 5 minutes into the future.
Well, I noticed on the streets it's actually trams running on like a glowing line that's clearly
like maglev, maybe.
Yeah, it's not cars and things like that. So their technology is like cleaner. It's way ahead of ours. And so there is a line of kings that become protectors as the Black Panther. So they have these superhuman abilities. I don't know what's stopping other people taking the same herb. I'm assuming the king has access to all of it. I think we're told that later, aren't we? Really, when Killmonger burns it.
Yeah, possibly. It's probably also like a tribe, It's like it's like people just generally don't do it because it's like sacred. Do you know what I mean? They're all kind of like think, well, that will never do that. That's
what's to stop one of the cleaners nicking one? Do you know what I mean? But it just doesn't happen.
But I think it's that that'll be sacrilege, and everyone has that kind of like that.
It's tradition, isn't it? So
that kind of thing. It's like it's like they all kind of have that same belief.
It's like some unwritten rule. You don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine. I mean, again, it's like I'm speculating here, but
well, unless we find in the sequel there's a bunch of super fucking powered cleaners. Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean that'll explain the next film is like, okay, well it's all been burnt now. Actually, a bunch of people actually stole some and
That's
made their
another
own.
point. That's another point actually. If you think back to Civil War, he already has the power when his father is still alive, leading me to wonder. Is it always a ceremony where they're given the power, or is it actually passed on genetically, then it's removed as part of their whole confirmation and then given back to them by the power? I.e., if Chadwick Boseman's character had a child, would that child already have some of these abilities?
Well, they do specifically because they go when we do go to the tribal ritual bit. They do go for each of the tribes and say, is anyone is there a challenge of this tribe? And then they go to Chikala's tribe and they say, is anyone from the bloodline? So it's like anyone who's like, that's how Killmonger is able to challenge because he's from the bloodline.
He's from the bloodline. Because that would, if they left that dialogue out, that would be a plot hole. Yeah. I've got a right to the throne. Well, that's like saying Beatrice or Eugenie do in our royal family. No, you don't. You are a cousin to the heirs.
Yeah, so it's something that you have to officially fight for, but he's done in a kind of, it has to be done this way. So
yeah, so the slight hole is, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, the Black Panther title goes with the monarchy, but presumably you can abdicate one without the other, because in one of the early scenes of the film, I never freeze. Well, that means he's been doing this a while. If he's been doing this a while and his father died the previous week and we saw him become Black Panther right after his father's killed, so he'd already taken up that mantle. Whether that means his father no longer would or whatever, I don't know, and the film isn't quite clear on that. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, but that is I don't know.
I mean, again, speculating, but I think like we did when we did Civil War, but I imagine it's kind of like, oh well, I'm a bit old. I'm a bit old now. You're my sort of heir, so you are my kind of like.
You are Prince Regent to that bit of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're freshly like the guy who does all the physical fighting shit. You're like, yeah.
I'll do the sitting back eating grapes and getting blowjobs bit. Yeah. It's a tough life. Yeah. Okay, so we get that as the prologue. It's this hidden country with endless technology, endless wealth, 5 tribes, one of those not loyal, and a line of kings that take up powers not unlike the super soldier serum, very sort of Captain America level, if you like, I would imagine. But obviously they take on the mantle of the Black Panther, so it's much more cat-like in the way they move. I like all that. I think it's a really good little prologue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does setting up, doesn't it, I think?
And it's all done in the style of the technology of itself, isn't it? Like all this kind of like Man of Steel sort of material that just sort of molds and...
Well, when they talk to someone over an intercom, their heads form in that way, don't they? So, yeah. And then we do have that was another problem I had when I first saw the film. It was expectations as well. I went in expecting a Bond film because it effectively said, "Oh, this is the closest thing Marvel will ever do to a Bond film."
It was actually, it pretty much is.
Well, that's factually correct, but the film stops being anything like Bond after about 25 minutes.
It's only a Bond film that once he's finished doing the tribe, you have essentially the Q scene with his sister.
Yeah, and that's it. That's where it ends being a Bond film.
And then he goes on a mission in a casino. So that's where...
the casino scene, pretty much.
So the idea of like being armoured by, having an armourer and travelling the world to do these missions, some of them sort of formal dress areas like casinos, which looked very, very like the one in Macau in Skyfall. But also the very first scene of the film is like a Bond opening caper.
Yeah.
But yeah, it stopped after about 25 minutes. I was really disappointed because I just thought, if that's what like this is going to be like, I will take endless fucking Black Panther films. Because it didn't feel exactly like Bond, but it had so much of that flavour that it was bound to speak to us.
Yeah.
But the opening sequence, I just thought was great. He's flying into a region to basically extract his former lover, Nakia. And I don't know what the arrangement is, but she's in and amongst some mercenaries or something, isn't she?
Yeah.
It's a travelling convoy at night. And it's like, I never freeze. I quite like that. Don't freeze, I never freeze. So that's like, Okoye can talk back to him. I like that.
I never freeze.
And then he jumps... Sorry, go on.
So they did miss an opportunity, like, sort of, when she does say, you froze, like, it did miss, like, an opportunity to retort back and say, like, well, that's how I need you handle it. Kind of thing. But,
he didn't.
Yeah.
They'll correct that in a sequel, but they do have T'Challa just a touch too stoic. But that was exaggerated first time I saw it because James Brown, just like Get On Up, which I recommend to anybody. But I like this simple extraction. Just the way he moves, the tech he's got on him, to stop the cars and things like that.
It's amazing.
Again, it does feel like a set at times, though. Particularly when he lands on the ground and they all stop, it feels like a set. So it's one of those films that looks strangely cheap in places. Go on, Chris. Sorry.
It gives also the impression that Black Panther's almost like a mysterious guardian of like Africa, of in that area. Do you know what I mean? It's like that kind of, no one sort of outside of Wakanda really sort of knows like what or who he is. But it's just that kind of like...
Yeah, because this is like... I can't remember, it's Nigeria or something. This is not actually Wakanda.
So it's like this sort of mysterious protector, kind of...
Yeah. I can't remember if that was before or after we see 1992.
It was after, because we see it goes from...
No, I think that goes straight out of the thing, doesn't it, to 1992, before we get to present day. Actually, the way Marvel is structured, it would be. Because if you think of Guardians 2 in that, you get like a flashback and then... 1992 chosen for a reason, if you think about it. That was the year of the LA riots.
Yeah, very important.
The whole Rodney King thing, the policemen that beat him up were all acquitted, and then there was 6 days of riots in
complete
LA.
Distrust in the police.
Yeah. And again, it just feeds... You don't need to know too much about all that. If you didn't spot it, it doesn't matter. But it's the fact that the whole themes of this film are, do we help downtrodden people that look like us, i.e. people where African people of African descent are minorities and not being treated as well. So it's very deliberately 1992, and it would have radicalised Sterling K. Hayden, the King's brother. That's what would have radicalised him, living there and seeing how we're all kings at home, and in fact I'm literally royalty. And then I come here and see people living in these like downtrodden projects, and like an innocent man, well, not an innocent man, but a man being certainly overbeaten by police, and the riots that came out of it. So I just think 1992 is deliberate, and it isn't just the fact it needs to be a certain period of time beforehand. So what we later find out to be Killmonger's father is the brother of T'Challa's father, and the current king. The king in 1992 anyway. This is played by the son of the guy who plays the older T'Chaka. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I looked it up earlier because I thought, well, they haven't used any de-aging here or anything.
No.
The guy who played T'Challa, sorry, T'Challa's Chadwick Boseman, but the guy who played T'Chaka is called, I'm looking it up because I can't remember, John Carney. And his son plays the younger version of him.
How about that? Very cool.
Which is really cool. And you've got two guys there. One, Sterling K. Hayden, who won't make it out of the scene because he's killed by T'Chaka here in full Black Panther regalia. And the guy with him, we will later find out, is Forrest Whitaker's character Zuri. And it's all to do with the fact that they've been effectively giving the means, or smuggling, or whichever way it is, vibranium to Klaue to be able to get it out there onto the open market to help the downtrodden, which is a bit of a fucking blunt tool actually, because you've got no control over who buys it.
No.
But that's the general idea, to stop this protectionism. They don't like this idea of shutting themselves away, but while 2 billion people who look like them, is the way it's put, suffer.
No, it's difficult, isn't it? It's one of those things that's like, do you help others, or do you just kind of look to your own and...
Yeah, and T'Chaka is isolationist.
Yeah, he's very much just yourself. Keep it secret. Just pretend on the world stage that we are a third world country and we don't have all this mineral wealth and riches and technology. So
it's very much like tradition. Like we've got to maintain our tradition. We're very protectionist. Yeah.
But if you look at sort of, I mean, Japan did something similar. Obviously, for many, many years, obviously it kind of kept itself hidden, and then you had the adventure of like, Portuguese kind of boats and everything, and then they decided, oh, okay, in the 18th century, let's open ourselves up to the world. And obviously, America went through their own period of the 30s after the Depression and everything as well. So okay, they went through a period of can't even speak this evening, isolationism.
Yeah, it'd be very much like, we need to preserve the way that it's it's done us well so far. So why should we?
And also the technology's so far ahead. If you let it out there, you might lose control of it.
Yeah,
it's not an entirely. The film does have a view. The film does sort of lump onto one side, but there is an argument on the other side. It isn't throwaway. It's not too bad at all. So the guy who plays Sterling K. Hayden plays, whose name I've completely forgotten. His son is Erik Killmonger, as will later be. Has a different name, but that's the name he sort of uses because he's left in America with his father dead. They don't take him with them, which will obviously, he becomes radicalised after that, and that will set up the plot like quarter of a century afterwards. Yeah,
it's very much like sort of the I was going to say the sins of the father is passed down to the sons. It's like it's that kind of thing. Like sort of we are, are we responsible for what our ancestors or fathers have done previously? Or should we? So where we are, so we have the. So come straight back to the. So
the next thing would be they obviously
back, isn't he?
Yeah, but he comes back. So first we see that shield. He flies at what looks like a load of sort of sheep, a load of trees that would have like goat herders and stuff up there, and they fly through the barrier, and it's a new modern city. The one-liner is "This never gets old." They fly in, meet King Jaffe Joffer's wife. Not Madge Sinclair. We meet Shuri, his younger sister, who I believe is only meant to be about 16.
He's your king to be.
Yeah, Shuri is. That's Coming to America.
Voice of an angel.
That's Coming to America, and he does sing it totally like that. Poor Bets.
Oh, that's so much. When's the album coming up?
Yeah. His voice would give out after one song.
If you'd like to release an album, please send.
In time for Christmas.
He sent X amount of dollars too.
Just in time to be in your stocking fillers.
Not in time for Easter. No.
What, in 5 days?
Quick, go on, you can do it.
Well, you can knock out any old toss in 5 days, can you? All right. So so this is he's going home to be crowned effectively. When he picks up Nakia, so he's got Nakia with him, his ex-girlfriend Lupita Nyong'o. He's got Okoye there, who's like, I suppose, one of his like warriors. He's kind of
King guards,
a bodyguard. The King's guard, Danai Gurira.
They're loyal to the king, so that's what. Whoever the king is, they are like. Yeah. We are the protectors of the king. Very
visually striking as well. Bald with that outfit and the spear and stuff.
Don't mess with those ladies.
And they're going home to basically have him crowned. Shuri, his sister, is only about 16. She's quite sassy, and she will turn out to be effectively his his quartermaster.
Yeah.
Bit of annoying character, if you ask me. But
she's used in relatively small doses, so I'm not too bad with it.
She's very cool. Not too much on the nose.
I found it a little bit too I don't know. But
did you find it trying too hard to be funny all the time?
I just find it a little bit too. It's like that over hyper kid. You just think, just enough now. But I will say the actress does have genuine screen presence. So it was kind of like a mixture of but there's something engaging about her, but at the same time it's like, fucking just turn it down a bit. But so it's kind of a mixed emotions, but the actress herself is good.
Yeah, she's really good. British actress again. Well, brought up in Britain. Guyanese born, I think it says. But yeah, I had to look all these people up. Well, not all these people. Some of these people who I've not seen in other things. She's significantly older than the character, but again, still younger than most of the key players in this.
The really nice sort of fresh appearance where she can play any range.
Yeah, we go straight to his coronation, effectively, which is a set I didn't like. I didn't get on with this first time I saw the film. I thought, what am I watching? Because Marvel do this digital sky replacement thing, possibly because sometimes it sets anyway, and possibly because it's their signature look. Well, it's a little bit more. There's a bit more crimson in it than usual because of where they are in the time of day. But it's largely got this vanilla tint to it, and they're stood in this on the top of this sort of waterfall, effectively, with what is a very obvious set expanded by CG with all the tribes there, ready for him to be sort of challenged. All officiated by Zuri, the Forrest Whitaker character. I thought this all went on a bit long. I don't know. A lot of people who were praising the film were very positive about this because they thought, it showed all the different tribes and African culture and stuff. So maybe it's just me, but I was quite glad when this scene was done, to be honest.
I mean, in a kind of way that you've seen it before, like, all right, we're seeing a tribal combat ritual.
It's right at the start of the film. He's clearly going to win, so there's no tension in it.
Yeah.
I think it's just to show us something a bit different, which I kind of respect. But again, I think it just looked like sets in digital sky. But Becca's broadly right on the visuals of this, but the couple of times it doesn't work, it really doesn't work, and I don't like it here.
Yeah. I wonder if there are some kind of aspects which perhaps don't gel or don't kind of. I don't know. I'm sure that there are some experts on the culture who say, well, that's not quite right, or that doesn't quite fit. But I think it just has
it's not a single African culture, is it?
No,
this is a made-up country.
This is it. But it's one of those things where, because it is such a melting pot of cultures and languages, that I think it does quite well to do the broad brushstrokes. It's like the same, when we go to Korea later on as well. It's kind of like, obviously it's meant to be the sun, but it's kind of, it could be like Seoul, or it could be any other kind of Korean city, really. Again, which is a melting pot of cultures. So, but anyway, that's my point. I think it does really well to paint broad brushstrokes.
Yeah, we also get introduced to M'Baka as well and their tensions. Because obviously he kind of spares his life, doesn't he, to a degree? He kind of he encourages him to look, pass out, tap out.
Tap out, yeah. But the whole wrestling idea, yeah.
So he's now king, and he has to intake the serum again to have the vision.
That's the point. Before they're challenged to make it a level playing field, they drink a potion that removes their power, which looks quite painful. It looks
you really feel that he's going through pain, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the veins all stand out for a second, but yeah. So they fight on a much more level playing field, which is how he's able to lose later, effectively, because he's fighting a real soldier. This kind of reminded me of things like Thor, where he gets visions of his father and can seemingly commune with his father in the afterlife. This is kind of consistent with this. They're laid in some pit, completely covered. I think they're given the sort of ground down herb again to give them back their powers, and they basically commune with their family line. So in his case, he's given T'Chaka to meet, isn't he? And in this case, he's just basically telling he's on, like, what would you say, a plane a plane as in PLAIN.
Not
an aeroplane.
Yeah. Astral plane.
Christ, you two would be great at Foley work. Particularly Chris, I felt.
It's like if you're feeding your little ones, like, here comes the plane.
I miss
Get ready for the train. Choo choo.
It's a little bit like that, isn't it?
Ooh, I looked around then, thought it was a real train. So yeah, he talks to his father, but on this occasion it's purely about he's not ready, and I'm not ready to be without you, and that sort of thing. Yeah. And he says, what sort of parent would I be if I hadn't prepared you? You are prepared, you are ready. So at this stage it's purely about being ready to be king, not about what he wants to do with being king. So it's quite well written. All the pacing problems is about how they present the action and stuff like that later. It's actually very well written.
Mm.
Where do we go from that? We must go to preparing for a visit to Busan.
Yeah, so
South Korea.
Doesn't he have the Q scene?
Yeah, he's going to go to Busan. He says he's going to take Okoye and Nakia with him. And then he goes to see his sister.
Yes, because of Klaue. Klaue's made appearance because we would have had established the heist in London when he takes the vibranium.
Sorry, we haven't mentioned that. Yeah, tell us about the heist in London, Chris. This is where we first meet Erik Stevens Killmonger.
Yeah, I think it's is it British National Museum or something like that?
I think it's like the exhibition of Great Britain. It's an exhibition it's a museum of Great Britain. It doesn't really exist, I don't think.
Does it not?
Well, the British Museum does.
Well, the British Museum does, but
because that's not far from where I used to stay when I worked up there.
Yeah.
But
of course.
I think they make a museum up.
Yeah.
And put it very near like the town hall on the South Bank, I think.
And we have Killmonger looking very hipster.
Yeah. He really does change, doesn't he? The whole look of him does change through the course of this film. He goes from kind of hipster to none at the other end of the spectrum.
He's dressed like a proper like celebrity rap music kind of type person. So he's like obviously like he gets like an expert in, and he's almost like kind of educate me on this. What's this? What's this? And so he kind of has to like just entertain him. But they manage to smuggle poison in a coffee, and then they summon the paramedics.
She describes this artifact to him, and he says, "You're wrong. It's made of vibranium."
Mm.
So they're there to steal vibranium, and it's so valuable that like an axe head or a pickaxe head or something like that is just worth unbelievable amounts of money, and is incredibly valuable in use as well.
Mm.
So he's there with Klaue just to basically steal. Klaue comes in, I think, as one of the ambulance staff, doesn't he?
After as paramedic, yeah. And then just
ambulance
like kills.
Staff, yeah,
They've got people everywhere because Klaue comes in as like one of the paramedics, and his mate is another paramedic, and then their other contact works in the gift shop or something like that. They've got people everywhere.
They're there to steal that bit, basically.
So.
And then I think they get wind that it's going to be like fenced in Busan. It's going to be sold there by Klaue. Klaue set up a deal there. That's why he needs to go there. So he's getting ready to go there, and he goes to meet Shuri first. And Shuri is in kind of this film's version of the Quartermaster's area, the Quartermaster's lab.
Mm. Yeah.
First thing she shows him is shoes that don't make a noise. She ribs him for wearing. She ribs him for wearing like flip flops or something, doesn't she? What you're wearing those in here, like sandals or whatever. And then she shows him a suit that grows. She mocks him for the suit. Oh, we're having a fight. I'm being shot at. Let me just put on my helmet. And then she shows him a suit that will grow out of Tom Selleck's moustache. Nice cameo from a naked Tom Selleck.
No, they should have had Tom Selleck and just remove his tash. There you go.
Yeah. They could stick that on. Have him stand there naked, make some joke about it being magnum sized to like wink at the audience, and then steal his Testarossa and drive to that in South Korea. She's shown a suit. This really does set the scene for the nanotechnology we're going to get on Tony Stark's outfit next week, because I had real problems with that, still kind of do, but at least this sort of suit that appears from nowhere is trailed here.
Yeah.
It grows out of the necklace, basically.
Mm.
It just spreads over your body. She does something to the back of his head. She just like almost like barcodes it or something and says, "Now think it there." So it's basically he can control. She's put some implant in his head that basically, if he thinks of the suit will appear. Which is why he doesn't say anything, and then like the helmet will appear and disappear and that sort of thing. The other thing she shows him is that it harnesses energy as well. Which if for those of you who've not seen the film or just seen promotional materials for it, you'll sometimes see some streaks of purple in it, and that is where it's been storing energy. You punch something a couple of times, the third time you go to punch it, it's almost having a force field effect on you, or repels you, in fact.
Yeah, and then we go to Busan.
Yeah, Busan, South Korea. I had to look this up earlier purely because I'm woefully unknowledgeable about that part of the world.
I've got a fun fact about Busan coming up.
Well, the fact isn't about Busan particularly. It's more the fact that that's South Korea. And I thought, where is it in relation to Macau? Because it looks so much like that iconography from Skyfall. The city doesn't. The city reminds me much more like... what I thought of when I saw them driving through the city later was the video game Sleeping Dogs, which I think is set in sort of some of the rougher bits of Hong Kong. I didn't play the whole game. I played a fair bit of it though, and it reminded me of that. But certainly the actual casino and the inside of that, I'm sure if you put still shots next to each other, they don't look that much alike. But I had to look up how far Macau was from Busan just to get some idea. It's about a 3-hour flight, but it is broadly in the same part of the world, obviously China versus sort of South Korea. But yeah, they go to Busan, yeah. And Everett Ross is there.
Everyone's favourite agent.
Blending in with his impeccable accent work.
To be fair, I've got accent aside. I do the way he plays it. I do like his take on this kind of like sarcastic, mild-mannered, mild-mannered agent. Yeah.
I like him, and I've always liked Martin Freeman. I mean, you could never have predicted this is where his career would go. But again, I don't think the Brits, Tom Holland aside, are covering themselves in glory in the accent work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're just not, and he's really bad at it.
But then again, after like seeing Hellboy, which has just come out, there's a few American doing British accents. So I think it kind of works both ways. There's who
was particularly bad in that?
Well, I won't say bad, but the two main leads that are not Hellboy.
Daniel Day Kim and whatever the girl was called.
They're both American. Yeah.
Are they? I thought he was all right. She was less all right.
Yeah.
But I think we both watched like Hellboy last night, the reboot that's like flopping badly. I'm not saying that isn't the case, Chris, but it's just like, I mean, it's crunching, and you think, well, we're not from that country, so if we're hearing it that bad, how bad is it sounding to them?
Yeah.
Because quite often when Americans do British accent, they're not too bad. What they normally get wrong is like the social class. You know, you'll get an American in the centre of London sounding like the Queen, or on a housing estate, but they sound like the Queen, or vice versa. They'll be in some posh environment sounding like a Cockney. But broadly speaking, he's all right though. He's quite likeable, and now I'm kind of used to it. I've mentioned it again, but when he turns up again in the Marvel Universe, I probably won't now. I've had my say on it, and he is quite likeable. Yeah, so it's all, again, very Skyfall in that they're all connected by earpieces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We are, stop touching your ear line away from it really feeling of the same vibe.
Yeah, it does pretty much for me. I just thought, this is a bit of a retread. But I still really enjoyed it though. And yeah, I must agree, when this kind of scene comes to an end, that's when it stops being a Bond film for me. That doesn't make it any less of a movie. Obviously, there are some similarities, but yeah, I kind of got a really Skyfall-esque vibe in the section of the film.
Best work of the film's gone. This does feel quite Skyfall, mainly the way it's lit, I think, and that it's a similar part of the world. It's a far busier casino.
Definitely.
And when it kicks off,
I was trying to look. Do we see Sid Mann in the scene? And I couldn't see him. So.
This is higher octane action when it does kick off as well.
Definitely.
So they become aware. The deal is actually being done between Klaue and the is it the CIA? I think it is.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, he's there to kind of do a deal with Klaue.
And I can't remember how, but it just breaks into violence, doesn't it?
Yeah, I for what I can imagine, I think they clue on to what's the name? Zoki or
Okoye.
Okoye, yeah. I think the Klaue's men let onto her, then a fight breaks out, and then that just kicks everything off.
Right, and Klaue's got this like arm that opens up to be weapons and stuff. It's pretty cool. The only thing that did make me smile is when you got the flashback in 1992, and he's accused of aiding Ulysses Klaue.
Yeah.
You get like a shot of him, and I'm thinking Andy Serkis did not look like that in 1992. They didn't de-age Andy Serkis enough for 1992.
It looks like he's lived quite a life.
He's looked the same for 30 years or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much. So it kicks off. The other nice bit of technology they've got like, you can virtually pilot vehicles. They put like a little transponder on a vehicle's roof, and it can be driven by like Shuri in Wakanda, which is kind of cool. I like that technology, that being able to virtually pilot something, if that something is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the action sequence here, obviously, because there's more CG and because they're meant to be superhuman in their power set, this obviously moves us away from Bond. This is a lot of acrobatics between cars and stuff like that, isn't it?
That's really cool. I love this chase scene. It's actually an electric chase scene, and the music in the background as well. It's just it's a banger.
Yeah.
It's a banger.
And it ends on a nice visual gag as well, because you end up with Okoye bringing herself to a stop by digging up half the road with a spear. And then, like, Nakia appears beside her in just the car seat, which I thought was a pretty nice joke. It wasn't too overplayed.
Yeah.
I like all this. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and taking out the car with the spear, like, sort of using it as like a thing to crash into.
Yeah.
Like,
it's quite inventively shot. When you think, though, that Ryan Coogler, when you think what he did with, like, a boxing match in Creed, with a single take and things like that, he does put some thought into how he presents visuals.
Yeah.
And this is probably my favourite sequence of the film.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably the best overall action scene.
Certainly action-wise it is, anyway. And again, we've had very little Killmonger at this stage. He's only been in one scene, and we're probably, I'm guessing, half an hour into the film, maybe longer. They capture Klaue. They do manage to capture Klaue. The CIA have got him. Ross goes in to interview him. He's batshit, as you'd expect. But Klaue does tell Ross that this country is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
They don't have these tiny, scarce resources of it. They've actually got loads of vibranium.
I'm all your speed kind of thing. Like,
it's expensive on the world market because so much of it's out there, but there's actually loads of it. I think even when we'd met T'Challa, we still thought vibranium was rare. And of course it isn't particularly. And then I think they're going to sort of Erik attacks to break out Klaue, and Ross gets shot in the back, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And actually they look after him first rather than chasing Killmonger.
Yeah.
And they take Ross to Wakanda, to Shuri. And this prefigures what we see in Infinity War with her trying to sort of take the Infinity Stone out of Vision. She everything is technology. It's not like medicine is a separate branch per se. So she operates on him.
Yeah, it's like they can pretty much do anything. They can like heal death almost to a degree.
They don't waste time explaining it actually, and I did laugh at that in the summer review we did. Because how did you fix me? Vibranium? And it's like, yeah, but what does that mean?
Somehow.
Yeah, we know there's technology in it, but you haven't even got a scar there. You're feeling for it, and it's not there. So we don't know how it works.
And there'll be doctors watching it thinking that's utter bollocks.
and it's like, but vibranium is in danger of just being a deus ex machina. How did you do that? Vibranium. But it's such a minor point in the plot that I don't think it really matters here. But I'd be watching for that in Black Panther sequels. You've got to be careful. It's that Doctor Strange problem. How did you sort it out? Well, I waved my hands around and that sorted it. How did you sort it out? Vibranium. And I didn't like that first time I saw it, but I suppose it's just to put him back on his feet.
Do you think it's potential for bad things to come? Not like sort of bad mistakes, bad habits of just explaining things by just easy cop outs like magic.
Yeah, I think it's a big risk, but I think at least here, if you think about it, it's an excuse to get Ross back to Wakanda. Wakanda is isolationist. You want him there. It's the first time an outsider's going to see the technology, which will prefigure what's coming. And obviously they're going to use the character in the end sequence anyway. Do you need him?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You could probably do without him. But having brought him into the story, they've decided they want him to see Wakanda. They need some way to get him there. The best idea is to injure him. And if you injure him, you've got to fix him quickly, therefore vibranium.
It has to be life threatening enough to be like
The film's 2.25. Yeah.
If he goes anywhere else, he's going to die. But only
the film's like 135 minutes as it is, so they haven't got a lot of time. But I do remember just going when I heard that first watch. It was like, no, that's lazy. But it's on such a minor thing. I don't know that it matters.
So yeah, they come back and obviously empty-handed because he promised that he would at least either kill or bring Klaue back, and so that starts to weave like this mistrust of like, well,
and he does admit that's his father's worst mistake as well. He does admit that was his father's worst mistake to not capture Klaue, or his biggest failure.
Yeah. So we have Klaue and Killmonger. They're getting away, and Killmonger says to him, "You drop me at Wakanda." He's like, "Why would we want to go there? And then they have a shootout, basically.
Klaue's a mercenary.
Yeah.
Although he's so rich after the events of Age of Ultron that Lord only knows why he's doing this, but yeah, he's still only interested in the money. And they have a bit of a shootout. Killmonger kills him, basically. But it serves his purpose because he can take the corpse back to Wakanda and say, look what I've achieved that your king couldn't.
Yeah. Because right now no one really knows that he's got a birthright just yet.
He needs us a bit of support around him because T'Challa's a fairly popular... They're a popular family.
Yeah.
So, he brings back the body, and I think he bumps into... what's he called? I do have to look this up. I struggle to remember all of the names. Daniel Kaluuya's character, Wakabi.
Yeah.
Wakabi is basically dating Okoye, we find out later in the film, but is a lifelong friend of T'Challa. So he's already... Where did you get that? How did you do that? I think he's already kind of a little bit impressed by Erik.
Yeah, because he's instantly kind of like, oh, well, he's succeeded where his failure is. But there isn't anything else other than that, because he starts backing him up on everything else. Like, oh, well, in terms of like, oh, we need to get back on, we need to change our ways, we need to adapt kind of thing. And it's like, oh, he's just a bit too quick to do that, But maybe it's just romanticism of it all, maybe.
There's a lot in this film. I mean, considering they spunked away a whole half an hour on Act 3, there's quite a lot in this film. Yeah. And I think at times it feels a little bit... Overstuff's the wrong word, particularly given what we're going to cover next week. But they rush certain points and belabour others. I stand by everything I said in my open remarks, but again, I don't think I fell as in love with the Killmonger character as a lot of people did. Not because there's anything inherently wrong with the actor or the but it's all a little bit rushed. It's all a little bit like suddenly he's back there. He'll be king within about 10 minutes of the running time from here. It's not that great, but obviously he does. He is brought in to meet T'Challa, who's basically sat with his inner council or whatever they are on the throne, and he says that he's explained who he is.
T'Challa does know at this point who he is because he has Zuri explain it to him because before he does the ring. He's like his family ring or his father's ring, like round his neck. So he's like, hang on. So what's going on? So he explains the fact that of what happened with his brother back in California, in LA, and that in order to in trying to protect him, he ends up killing his own brother.
Yes, and that's what it was. There was a little mini shootout. He didn't just walk over and stab him. It wasn't quite like that.
He was like, you have to come back and answer for your crimes, and he tries to shoot Zuri to betray him, and then as a result, he ends up clawing him in the chest, which result leaves Erik to come back and find his dad dead and figuring out why.
Yeah. And we'll see a bit more around that in just a while because of that whole vision thing that's been set up. He has to challenge that T'Challa doesn't have to accept this, but he does.
Yeah, I think he has to really. It's like,
Yeah, by the sort of culture of the country, he doesn't have to, but story wise, he does obviously.
Yeah, I suppose politically as well, because if it's like, what you fail to, it would have been like a mark, and it would have been like, so it's like, let's just end it, let's get it done.
But I didn't understand that at the time. I mean, you're right. When you rewatch it and you see the first challenge at the start of the film, anyone from the bloodline.
Yeah.
I think I missed that, because it is only momentary, and they go around all the tribes one by one, so you could easily miss it. And again, you tend to think of your own monarchies if you have them, or historical monarchies if you don't have them. It didn't make any sense to me. I've got a right to the throne. No, you don't. You're his cousin. So that didn't play well the first time, but you're right. It's easy to miss, but it is there.
Yeah. So we have the fight, even though low crowd turnout, because it's short notice.
I was back to the fakest looking set in the film. You know he's likely to lose just by where we are in the film. So again, drags like
Superman to it.
Drags like fuck. Has his powers taken away again. I think that happens a couple of times in this film, obviously. And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, again? It reminded me of the Raimi films where the Spider-Man kept taking the mask off, and every time it happened, it was like, again? It's a bit like that with his powers here.
How many times must they do it?
I don't love this. The only thing I did think of is when he took his top off and he's got a scar for every kill. That's very like Victor Zsasz from the Batman Rogues Gallery.
Yeah.
He scars himself for every kill. Played by the lead singer of James in Batman Begins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What did you make of all this, Becca? The fight that's coming up again?
I think it's an epic fight scene, but yeah, it's just the whole thing, like, you've got to go through the whole kind of thing again.
The build-up and the taking of powers,
it's kind of like more of the same, isn't it? I mean, it does take a while to get going. It's just like, you just got to get through it. But I must say, my point earlier about that one scene on the train tracks looking a bit CGI, I must say the way the two like initiation sequences are lit. I mean, in terms of my studies of sort of film, the practical side of it, I'm not like very an expert when it comes to lighting, but I must say the lighting in the scenes like where he initiated into becoming Black Panther, and then now again where he's having to fight Killmonger for the challenge, it's lit a bit awkwardly to me. It could be, it might be.
It looks like a set.
It does. I was thinking, don't reference Die Another Day, but it kind of looks almost a little bit like it's lit as if it makes it a bit kind of hyper real, but too obvious that it's on the film set.
There's a shot in Die Another Day.
Otherwise, it looks really, really good. Action scenes.
Well, talking of Die Another Day, the colour's not the same, but do you remember the scene where it's a terrible effect? But I'm going to talk to the reaction shot afterwards when Halle Berry dives backwards off the cliff
exactly like that.
Water. Yeah, but after that, there's a reaction shot of Pierce Brosnan.
Yes.
And they shot that later. They shot that later on a set as an insert.
Yeah, they shot it
and
out
then
of the
stuck a digital sky after it. And it looks really shit if you notice it. But it's if you notice it, I don't think everyone does. And it reminds me of that now you mention it.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought of it. It looks like too like digital and not natural, like the lighting. And they've messed around with it and played with it and tried to make it look as natural as possible. But to be fair, it might have been. I haven't got the latest all singing or dancing 4K TV, so it might have been my settings, I don't know. But it did look a little bit fake, and it took me out of the film a little bit. But otherwise, I've got nothing wrong. No other problems with that sequence, apart from it's like, again. But the fight is fantastic, and the action is bang on. But again, it's just like, how many times is he going to do this, But other than that, fine.
There's a degree of nitpicking in it. But yeah, it's just the whole ceremony and all that. But yeah, the long and the short of it is he gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah, he's very ruthless, very aggressive, and yeah, he just basically just kicks the shit out of him, and then Zuri tries to offer his life to say, look, actually, really the only reason why your father is dead because he tried to kill me, so look, so kill me instead of me, done with it. He goes, no, I'll just fucking kill you as well.
Take both of them.
Which is not your best PR move at your inauguration, is it?
No,
not
really. There you go.
I mean, like, really, you should have said that before they started fighting, maybe.
Yeah, not when you've just now you've stuck him in a coma. I'd like to save him by Never mind, it's all right. So yeah, he's immediately, and we're halfway through the second act now anyway, and there's not a lot left to tell us now, really, because we have to see a little bit of what he does as king.
Because we're hurtling towards third act now, really, aren't we?
We are.
Because...
Everything now is just about... He's going to go straight to exporting weapons, or vibranium weapons around the world, to empower, putting it bluntly, black people around the world.
Yeah.
People who look like them. And again, made by an American studio, this is very much speaking to those sort of... those people who maybe feel that the same race is not getting the same shake in that country. Yeah. And then T'Challa's presumed dead. The rest of the kind of royal family have to kind of leg it before they're hurt as well. Okoye stays because she's King's Guard.
Though she doesn't like it.
No, she doesn't like it. What then?
He gets the proper ritual where he gets like the Black Panther magic, and he talks to his father in that apartment in Oakland. Yeah. He talks to his father, and the sadness of this scene, and it's one of the things that plays so well on rewatching. It's not often you get the villain in the film cry on screen. Well, it's as a boy he's talking to his father in the body of the boy, and he's saying, "No tears for me," and he says, "Everybody dies," and you just think, what a fatalistic, lost attitude this young man has. If he's grown up in sort of a very rough part of a tough city, then maybe he has lost a lot of people to drugs or gun violence or shootings or whatever. And just that horrible fatalistic attitude, and it's only when we sort of switch to the adult version of him we see tears. Yeah, I think this is all great, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good scene. And
it's not belaboured too long either.
No, as I say, it's run for just the right amount of time, and it's really quite an emotional piece actually. So a really fun scene.
Yeah, it's not often we see like the bad guy have like a bit of a moment.
No, that's true. That's right. You're right, Chris.
But yeah, so he instantly wakes up and then says, right, okay, well, burn all the flowers. It was like, yeah, but what about the next king? It's like, next king? So basically, he's come like as all dictators do. They go like, nope, I have absolute power. I am supreme ruler now. I'm changing things.
Can't take any risk, and also that he hasn't seen the body. He doesn't know if T'Challa's going to come back. Yeah. He don't know if any of the other relatives are going to, like Shuri or something.
Well, yeah, or any other threat really. It's just eliminating threat.
Yeah, eliminating threat. It's quite a nice shot. I thought it's cliched on the page, but I like the shot from behind of him when it's all on fire. Yeah, that's actually a really nice shot. Again, it sounds cliched as shit, but it's nice. It's lovely.
It was used in the trailers like as his introduction shot.
Yeah.
Seeing it,
but you don't know what you're looking at in the trailer, do you? So it works. I like all this, but again, we're hurtling towards Act 3 now because it turns out they head for that tribe that won't join. Yeah, what is that tribe called?
Because they managed to steal one before he does that. One of the flowers, because their idea is right. Our only real option is to go to Umbarkle and then give it and offer it him because
they're the only ones sat outside.
Yeah.
Up at the mountain tribe.
They're up in the mountains. The rest of the tribes are all sort of together in mainstream Wakanda, if you like. The Jabari tribe it is. Yeah, so they go up to, because he did challenge before, so again, for all the flaws I've got, that bit's a bit too long, or that bit's repetitive, or whatever, everything is set up and pay off, really. Him challenging at the start is relevant. He was... You could see why they would go to him, because he wanted to be king. He tried at the start of the film.
And yeah, he's probably the only one who has got, like, could be a contender, like a physical threat to him.
Yeah, well. he did give T'Challa a tough time. He did sort of wound him and things like that. So yeah, that works. And of course, when they get there, he's actually got a comatose T'Challa on ice, effectively. Yeah, because he was obviously very near death.
So they decided to give him the while in coma the magic stuff, and then
and that's it. He has another vision where he gives his father shit for it.
Yeah,
they cover him as per the ritual. He's back on that sort of plane by the tree with his father, he's saying how wrong his father was for abandoning his brother, abandoning the rest of the world, and that is the film's message. Really, it's very globalization, it's very integration, it's very one world, us all working together for the common good and stuff.
We are the world. We are the people.
We are the world. Yeah, I mean, I've got no criticism of it at all, but it is. It has an agenda would be wrong because that suggests something insidious, but it has a viewpoint.
Yeah.
One's a bad thing, one isn't. An agenda's a bad thing, a viewpoint isn't. We're straight into Act 3 now, and I'm going to run out of things to say because I don't like any of this. It's kind of boring.
I mean, I kind of half think if they just fleshed it out. I mean, I know it's kind of similar to what Marvel have done.
I wish that had been shorter, and the stuff we've just discussed had been given a bit more room to breathe.
And I know they've basically just done that with Spider-Man, but wouldn't it be kind of better if they just went, well, you haven't got the powers, but we've got the old suit. It's all we have, and it's like T'Challa must now kind of have to be up against an empowered Killmonger, and have to refight him to, even though he always got is the old suit.
Yeah,
but
well, the train idea would still work if
exactly that's what I was thinking, because it's like it's like, oh, I have to think tactically and get him like near that that would have worked
quite possibly. Although bear in mind, Peter Parker didn't lose his powers, but yes, he did lose his assistance.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? That kind of like, I'll go back and.
I've no strong feelings about that. I just think it's too long. It goes on for fucking ever, and it's supposed to build this idea, I think, of Wakanda as a tight community of people for the common good and stuff like that, and them all fighting back against any kind of tyranny. And T'Challa obviously being a beloved king because eventually they do turn to help him, but it's just too long. I did a time check, there were like 30 minutes to go. That includes credits and stuff, but it's just too long.
Yeah, and also, what does it mean for like the Boulder tribe who basically just committed treason for effective? You know,
I don't know.
I mean,
well, I don't know, because
what are the consequences of that? You know,
Daniel Kaluuya's character sort of changes side,
what happens to them, do they? Apart from being attacked by the army.
It's actually quite forgiving because Wakabi changes sides. That's when we learn he's with Okoye. He does change sides because he was in support of Killmonger, and he is. The implication is he's forgiven.
So he does come back to the fold.
Yeah, T'Challa's obviously quite a forgiving type.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you've got Martin Freeman in the virtual ship trying to stop the shipments of leaving. Yeah. Basically, that's what he's trying to do. And that's the kind of the George Lucas editing idea of just having a couple of things going on so you can cut between things.
Yeah.
Really, more than anything else. Because the film would have worked without that. But it's all right.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like you have to stop the villain's mission. So you have to, like, you know... I mean,
it's got a purpose, but, like, had it never been there, it wouldn't have occurred to me.
Yeah.
Not really. But yeah, I haven't really got a lot more to say now. Eventually it does end up with the two of them fighting down by the train line because the vibrations disrupt the suits or something. Mm-hmm. I found a lot of this boring. The only thing I will say is where it ends up, where the two of them end up, I will want to comment on. But have either of you got anything more you want to say about this whole sort of 20-minute sequence of the film?
No, just rhinos.
Yeah, the rhinos are amazing. So we don't know too much about them. We're showing them briefly further on, previously in the film, and then he blows a horn, and the epic battle rhinos appear, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, they could have done some more screen time. Would like to know more about the rhinos. Yeah, as I say, it does feel like it was really good. I've got no problem with like the action of it. The pacing is just probably a bit too fast, but it does feel a little bit rushed. Spend quite a lot of time in the middle, and then this end bit where all the stakes are, they just kind of feel like, right, this is what we're going to do.
We're saying the same thing with almost contradictory language, because when you say rushed, you don't mean the action sequence at the end is rushed. You're saying we rushed to it.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it's getting there.
And then luxuriated in this fucking action thing that went on forever.
And it kind of like glosses over the potential like loss of life in this big battle as well, like. Because you have basically got, like, two people who we don't really want to see fighting, but they are probably just, like, killing each other, literally.
Yeah, and it is relatively small scale. This is a country. This is a country at war now, by the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's probably about 4 dozen people.
It's like 40 people fighting on the field.
Yeah, so I don't love any of this. I've enjoyed the film, and the film is standing up to rewatches really well. But there were a couple of things that occurred to me. Obviously, he ends up besting Erik, and Erik is now dying. He doesn't want any help. He'd rather. It is that Paradise Lost thing. Better to sort of reign in hell than serve in heaven or something. In other words, he doesn't want to stay there and serve under T'Challa's regime. If it's not going to be the way he wants it, he doesn't want to be there. But there are a couple of things I thought of. Firstly, that whole sort of crying to his father during the vision, it was meant to humanise him a bit and tell us things aren't all bad. He's a victim of his environment and his upbringing. Therefore, his death is not treated too brutally. He's carried out to see a sunset. He's treated quite tenderly by T'Challa. And visually, it reminded me the end of the second Blade film, where he takes her out to see a sunrise, and obviously that will kill her. That's all I wanted to say, really. I think they treated the character with a little bit of empathy, and finished with a visual that was actually familiar to me.
Yeah, there's a bit of we were enemies, but essentially we are by kind of blood, and in different circumstances we should have been allies to a degree. It's just shame.
It's like cousin as well, doesn't he?
And you had no chance.
Yeah.
You had no chance, and that plays exactly into what's coming next, and where Wakanda ends this film and T'Challa ends this film. Erik is actually the product of an environment T'Challa is in position to alleviate and help and stop happening. We can't just shut off from the world. We shut off from this young man, and look what happened. Now, they're not always going to be in the position to be a Killmonger, but we found out earlier in the film he went into the forces and just killed like it was going out of fashion. So I think this has a very profound effect on T'Challa.
Yeah, and so that's basically where he decided to set up. He basically buys the area where it all started in Oakland, and set up like a centre of
an outreach centre.
Yeah.
He goes to Oakland, manages to know exactly what building he's going to, and buys the building. We see the kids on at the very start of the film.
Yeah.
That building his uncle would have lived in, and he says, I bought that building, and he points at the two either side and says those as well, and this is going to be the first Wakanda outreach centre. He says that Nakia will run the sort of outreach elements of it, and he's asking Shuri to run the sort of technology exchange elements. Not going to be much of an exchange because they're miles ahead, but the kind of collaboration.
Dole out the information, can't they? And say, this is
they
what
can dole out the information, and also it will still need to be controlled. You can't just pour everything out to everybody. So that's what it is. He's going to reach out and effectively help the rest of the world.
And then and the post credit scene is basically just that again. It's like he's making an announcement to.
He goes to the UN.
Yeah, and
says we're going to be players on the world stage, and they're like, what can you offer? Basically you're a basket case, and it's kind of oh yeah.
It ends with him smirking. We know more than you do.
Everything, because we have. It's like
we are richer than you.
And then the very post credit is Bucky, I think. Bucky has been cured of the...
He's been there that whole entire time, and they didn't bust him out.
It's not that long. It's not that long. This is set not long after Civil War, don't forget.
Yeah, I think it's only like last week, because it just his funeral.
They've cured him in a couple of weeks, really. Yeah. Well, months at least, at most, sorry. That's it, Guardians of the Galaxy, folks, apparently. I don't know why I said that. I was fucking miles off. Black Panther, folks. I'll go first, actually, on final thoughts, just because I think I've said most things. It's the devil's in the detail. There's bits I don't like. It repeats itself in places. Bits look like sets. The last act is shite. But it has themes. It has ideas. It has pride in what it's trying. It has a new world. It has pride in what it's trying to do. It has a kinetic a kinetic lead that moves really well. It has lovely vision. It tells me, I think, that Ryan Coogler as a fan of the James Bond series, because he's at least fitted flavours of that into this. It's, if you go in expecting get on up, that kind of charisma in a lead performance, not literally, it's not. If you go in expecting a Bond film, it isn't. And I think I walked out a bit disappointed for some of those things that, what I thought I was going to get, it wasn't. But yeah, I haven't got a lot more to add because I've said it all. It is top tier Marvel, just about.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler wouldn't be bad as a Bond choice either, but for a director, that'd be weird to cast him in actually in a role.
Yeah. I'm not an actor, are you sure?
Never acted before, just directed films, and he's. But no, yeah. Again, I agree with Dave. It's like it's almost like a breath of fresh air. It's done really, really well. It's a new a new world, good villains, good new character, and we'll see where this goes. But this is like really. This is definitely top tier in terms of the quality of the filmmaking. This is top tier. The last act lets it down, but bar that, everything else is stellar.
Yeah, can't really add much more to that really. As I say, very much top 5 at least. For what it's worth, top 5 if not top 10 Marvel definitely. I say third act does drag a little bit, but I say performances are all stellar. Visuals are fantastic. Had a really great time, enjoyed it, and. If you want a really solid action adventure flick, then you can't do worse than Black Panther. Definitely, you have 100% fantastic time with it.
You can't do better.
You can't do better even. I know. Sorry, it's very late here, and I'm very tired. So you have to excuse me. I do know that's what I meant. You can't go wrong, basically.
Something's missing though, Chris.
Right.
What do you think's missing?
Well, I think, I switched this film on and I just didn't I didn't understand what I was looking at. I didn't understand what I was looking at. I don't think I understood any of the themes, don't think I understood any of the trivia around it. And it finished and I thought, this is groundbreaking, but I don't know why.
Do you feel you need more facts?
I think I need more facts, but I'm a bit worried because, as Becca's pointed out, it's quite late. So if she just spills a load of facts at me, I'm going to fall asleep. What can we do about...
But what if there was something more entertaining in more way? If it was facts but with an entertaining element?
So a segment we might call entertaining knowledge.
Information.
Yeah. That doesn't sound right though. Surely something a bit more alliterative and punchy. Like fun facts. Becca.
Worst infomercial ever.
Do you like cheese? Do you like peas? Do you like to squeeze? Well, now you can have cheesy, squeezy peas. Yes, I wasn't quite sure what to do fun facts on, so I've got a whole plethora of facts. Fun fact number 1, Black Panthers are the national cat of Gabon and can leap up to 20
feet. Of which
feet.
country?
Country called Gabon.
Gabon, right.
Yes.
I thought you said Iran.
No.
bit odd, alright.
Wrong continent, maybe? But yes, they like to jump. They are the expert tree climbers, all the big cats, and can leap up to 20 feet to catch their prey.
Experts.
Experts. They are the experts.
Doing like courses on it. You can buy manuals written by a panther.
Big cat experts, obviously. They're the 5th largest cat species. And panther, actually, obviously, as well as tigers, refers to 2 types of big cat, along with obviously leopards in Asia and Africa, and in the Americas, obviously, they're known as jaguars, as we all know. Fun fact number 2. Rubbish when it comes to any other languages that isn't basically like
English
European or anything like that. English is equally bad, so I can't pronounce, but yeah. Obviously,
Anglice!
That's it, pretty much. Angliski. The main, obviously, when not speaking, instead of English, they do speak Wakandan. They speak Xhosa, Bantu language, which is the official language of Zimbabwe, as we mentioned earlier. It's the first language for 8.2 million people, and spoken by roughly 11 million people who speak it as a second language. In and around mainly the Cape area of South Africa. It's a tonal language with a high and low tone and click consonants, which is why I can't pronounce it properly. Famous Xhosa people include Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Trevor Noah, which I didn't realise. Obviously, he was born in South Africa. And Mira Makeba. And fun fact number 3, gorillas are obviously the largest of the primates, and can live to be up to 50 or 60 years old in captivity, obviously to die younger in the wild. In particular, mountain gorillas obviously live at very high altitudes of 8,000 to 13,000 feet, due to the thick hair, which helps them brave the sub-zero conditions. The diet largely consists of leaves, shoots and stems, and sadly humans are pushing them higher and higher into the mountains, obviously due to humans being bastards. Fun fact number 4, Busan is a metropolitan city, as it is known, is the second most populous city in South Korea after Seoul, with approximately 3.5 million people. It's obviously well known as a port, it's actually the busiest in Korea and 9th busiest in the world. It's a city of festivals and film, and was in 2014 bestowed upon it by UNESCO as the creative cities. And fact number 5, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, Black Panther is the first superhero movie to garner an Academy Award. Also had several nominations, and it won Best Costume Design and Best Production Design, and was the first Marvel Universe movie to win an Oscar.
That's fun, folks. Social media, then. You can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find all the old episodes on Soundtracks.co.uk if it's not on iTunes. So I suggest you go back and listen to our old Bond stuff and any other old episodes like the Rocky series. What other good ones have we done?
Star Wars.
Yes.
At the moment,
Rocky,
we're
Bond.
obviously with the new one being. I mean, in terms of my favourites, maybe that might vary, but yeah, Star Wars we did all of over a couple of sittings, and obviously there's a bit of hype around that with the episode 9 title being announced about a week and a half ago from the perspective of people downloading this. And yeah, so if you want to go back and see what we thought of all the previous Star Wars films, that's all there, and we will get together later in the year to cover The Rise of Skywalker as well with Charlie Brigden.
There's a link to that on our Twitter feed, I do believe.
Yes, I did post that out, I think, on both of our pages a couple of weeks ago, a few days ago. Yeah. Becca?
Yes, you can follow us along on Twitter and Facebook, and also YouTube and iTunes. Facebook.com/Do Expect Us to Talk. On Twitter we are at Do Expect Us to Talk. You can also drop us an email, expectustotalk@gmail.com. Yes, if you'd like to get in touch, please do. We'd be grateful to hear from you.
Okay, folks. That was film 18, and obviously the forthcoming Endgame is going to be the 22nd, so we're finally getting quite close to the line now. Actually, Endgame's coming at the end of the month. It'll be released a few days after the episode we cover next, which is kind of timely, which means, Becca,
Getting to the big one now. Do you expect to talk will return with Avengers Infinity War?